Hi, I'm Diana, the host of the Meeting Room podcast, and we're shooting a special episode today from two different locations, Budapest and Prague. And the reason why this episode is so special is because of our guest. So let me give you a bit of heads up and just tell you about him. Jeff Bianco is joining us today as a founder and the president of Dev.Pro, and basically a person responsible for its growth from 0 to over 800 specialists. And today we're having this long and I believe insightful conversation about his background, approach to work, mindset, and much more. So definitely stay tuned. Hi, Jeff. It's a great pleasure that you're here. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. Yes, it's something that's been rescheduled a couple times, but I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, for sure. They say the third time is a lucky one, so let's try. How are you today?
Everything's great. It's a snowy day in Prague, but it's quite a beautiful city, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, actually, same about Budapest. I'm here now, and it's so beautiful. My last day here. So I'm really excited to just start this conversation, and we can just divide it into like separate part because there is like really a lot to talk about. And I would just like to start with talking a little bit about your past. I know that you've been in software development for over 25 years, but how did everything start? Maybe just you could tell a little bit about your first job.
It's a very interesting question because I don't look at my career as jobs. It's really been a series of opportunities and businesses that I've been involved in. I actually started when I was quite young. I was around 15 years old, and I realized there were some opportunities to do things that no one was doing just in my local school. So I ended up selling some computer-related products to people, and I said, hey, this is kind of nice to make my own money and not have to ask my parents for things, and it worked out well. But it turned into a real business when I was going to university. Started selling clip art, and it was just a way to make some extra money, and then it turned into a business. I discovered that schools were interested in this, and they started sending me these things called purchase orders, which were not checks. They were not actually money, and I didn't even know what to do with it. So the first ones I had, I actually sent back to them saying, you have to actually pay for this. And then I realized they send you a purchase order, you accept it, you send them an invoice and the product, and then they pay you later. It was a whole new world for me. So I learned a lot over the years, ended up running several businesses. I think the most interesting part of the story relates to how I ended up working in Ukraine. I was living in Seattle, I was approached by someone who was living in Seattle, was originally from Russia, from St. Petersburg, and he said that he had this group of people he knew in Ukraine in this town called Kharkov, now called Kharkiv, but they started doing software development for they're looking for clients basically. And I said, that sounds interesting. Let's see how it can work out. And that was a company of maybe 10 or 15 people. And I became one of their first clients. It ended up growing. It was called Validio Software. It ended up growing to about 250 or 300 people, and then was sold to a company called Global Logic, which is one of the largest players out there now in the outsourced business. And then what happened from there is I realized once that company was sold that I no longer had access to these developers anymore, but I knew hundreds of people that had worked in Ukraine for me over the years, who had been software developers and project managers and different types of leaders. And that's when I decided to start Dev.Pro. So called some of the people that I knew. We started the company, obviously very small at the beginning, and that was about 11 years ago, I think, and then it's grown from there.
Wow, it's really interesting that you kind of had this entrepreneurship spirit from the very beginning, like from you were 15, like it was just inside you.
Absolutely. It was something that to me was just natural, and someone asked me the other day, I was talking about interviews for jobs, and I'm like, wow, I've never actually interviewed for a job before. It's a completely different experience than most people. I've interviewed lots of people, but I've never been sitting on the other side. So this is not quite a job interview, but it's an interview, still an interesting experience.
Yeah, it definitely is. Okay, but when you found the company, when Dev.Pro just started, did you have any goals at the beginning? Like, what were your goals?
Sure. I'm I'm more of an opportunistic person where I just look at what the opportunities are and decide how to go from point A to point B, but not understanding that point C or D is the end goal. So I don't say I want to start here, I want to end up there. I just take the first step and then decide, oh, what's next? What's resonating with clients, what's resonating with the market, and I knew I wanted to have a company that was that was large, but large, not large like thousands and thousands of people, but not 20 people. At first I was thinking, oh, we get to 50 or 100 people, and that would be interesting. But then when you get to 100 people, you can't just stop, because the people that are working for you want to grow. And if you're not growing, then their opportunities to try new things are limited. So I learned when we were at 200 people and we stagnated for a while, we were the same size for a couple of years, that people were getting a little anxious and looking for, like, okay, what's next? If I now manage 5 people, can I manage 2 teams of 10 people? Well, if you're not growing, it's really hard to do that. So then I realized we have to have a steady growth path. But if things are growing too quickly, you also create problems for yourself because your systems and processes aren't prepared for it. So really no specific goals. Actually, interestingly, later today we're looking at our goals for 2023 as a company, and so those are not long-term goals; those are short-term goals. What are the things we want to do in the next year? And those will be announced, in the next couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Sure, that's interesting. But if we look a little bit of a retrospect, do your expectations in the beginning, just the way everything started, matches how things ended up and how they are going now?
I mean, it's well beyond what I thought things could be. I was thinking a few hundred people and have an impact. Before the war started, we were one of the larger, in the top 30 or 40 size IT companies in Ukraine. I never thought we'd get to be that stage. The top ones are much larger, obviously, but we were rapidly moving up the path. Now we've become a much more globally diversified company with people in 50 countries around the world. That I didn't expect. I really expected it to be more regional, and maybe we have some people in the U.S., but now, we'll talk more about it later, I'm sure, but now we've got people all over the world. We're actively hiring in Latin America. I'm going to Brazil in January to meet with some of our team members there. So, it's much different than what I would have predicted even a few years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And also you started talking about the challenges that go with the growth of the company. And I believe it's one thing to just build a company, and it's completely different thing to just grow it into something large and successful. And that's going to be my next question. What do you think was the reason that the company was able to successfully grow from 50 people to over 800 specialists?
The thing that I like most about working with people, working in Ukraine, is the people. There's a lot of bright, talented, motivated people there. A new generation compared to their parents growing up in the Soviet system. The new generation, which is not new anymore, but it's people that are really looking to make an impact and make a change, and finding good people to help grow the company. Without that, it wasn't possible. It's not like I magically can make all this happen. You have to find, leaders that want to, make an impact and have motivation, and I've been super lucky to be able to do that, and that's the only way that we've been able to grow the way we have. There's a limit to the number of people any one person can effectively manage. If you have more than 10 direct reports, then you start to lose insight. So you need to find those 10 people and let them manage other people and really build a hierarchy and infrastructure. And we've been able to do that with super bright and talented people all through the years. Not everyone has stayed. We've had some people that have been with us from the beginning. Other people have been great and have come and have decided it's time to look at other opportunities. I never get upset when someone says, hey, it's time for me to move on. If I'm not able to provide the things they're looking for a variety of reasons, then they should look elsewhere. But it's also nice when some of those people decide to come back and they say, I thought it would be better somewhere else. I'd have more opportunity. It'd be more organized. It would be something. And then they realize, actually, the frustrations I have at Dev.Pro, they're, different. There's different frustrations somewhere else, and I'd rather come back. So over the years, many people have come back, and that's nice to see. Or they've, recommended their friends. A lot of people have ended up getting married because they met at Dev.Pro. It's been a good experience throughout the years.
And what also fascinated me, and what you just said, is how easy it seems for you to delegate. That you just said that, okay, 10 people, I let them do the job. And I know there are problems in some companies with exactly that they try to micromanage everything. Did you have that kind of mindset from the very beginning, or did you have to grow to it from some situations?
I'm sure the people that know me well will say that I'm definitely the micromanager type, and that's my inclination, but I've had to learn to not do that. I've had to learn to let people, give them the autonomy, to make decisions, to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of growth and part of running a business. It was so interesting for me. This was many years ago, that if someone made a mistake, they said, oh, it's my mistake, you can take that out of my compensation. I said, no, that's not, we don't do that way. You have to be unafraid to make mistakes, because if you're completely afraid to make mistakes, then you don't do anything, you're paralyzed. And, the mistakes, yes, you made a mistake and it cost the company money, but it doesn't come from your compensation. If you make too many mistakes, it costs us too much money, I'll have to replace you, but I have to accept that, you're not perfect, no one is. So, we just accept it and move on, and hopefully learn from it. And there's one story I heard, which I don't know if it's true or not, but, some employee of some company made a mistake. It cost the company $250,000. And the CEO was asked, are you going to fire that person? And he said, why would I fire that person? I just spent $250,000 training that person. So, yeah, that's kind of how I look at it is, these things happen. You have to let people, do their job, and they'll make mistakes. They won't do things always the way you would do it. But, you find good people and they'll find a good path.
Yeah, and that's true. The person is most likely is going to learn, and then not going to do the same mistake if you fire that person and hire another one who could do the same mistake.
Or make a different mistake. There's, when you spend time, you need to, I have a different theory as well, which is, you have to earn the trust. You join the company and you have to learn our system. You have to learn how we do things. You can't just come in on day one and say, oh, I'm going to change these 5 things without knowing why those 5 things exist. So someone that does have that inclination to come in quickly and change things, that's not, I look for that in interviews. I don't want that to happen. I want them to take the time, learn about it, understand it, and then if they say, hey, how about this, how about that? Yeah, it's a good idea, no problem. But but not just to jump in on day one and think, oh, because it worked a different way at a different company that it's going to do just as well at Dev.Pro. First learn about it, learn how we do things, and then open to hear your ideas.
Yeah, as they say, learn the rules before you break them.
That's exactly right.
Similar to this idea.
Yes.
Okay, and if we're going to talk a little bit more about challenges, maybe you could just remember a thing or a situation when you had to make a difficult decisions to make Dev.Pro grow.
It's difficult decisions, not every day, but every week, every month. Hiring and firing, that's always very challenging. But something I learned early in my career is, we're running a business, we're not running a charity. And if you feel bad, someone's not performing, and oh, this person's personal situation is difficult, and oh, I'll just keep them around. And then someone else, oh, they have another difficult situation, I'll just keep them around. Eventually, you put everyone at risk by keeping people around that are not performing. It doesn't mean you make a quick decision, this person, get rid of this person, get rid of that person, but you can't keep running the business in a way where lower performers can hide, and you have to make difficult decisions, for the health of the overall business. That's really challenging because the business is about people, and everyone has a history, a background, their own life, and you need to respect that. Allow work-life balance, deal with people's injuries, sicknesses, their children getting sick, all of this. But it's really about performance. If they're not able to do the job well, unfortunately, you need to make a change, and that's some of the most difficult time that I have. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, it's like more about even keeping the balance between like running in business and having this people first approach. And I think from what I see, like from my perspective, that you're actually doing it pretty successful, just in terms of keeping that balance. And that's where my next question comes from. What are you most proud of regarding the company? Like, what do you think the biggest strengths of Dev.Pro is?
Once again, it's the people. It's I'm super happy to find people that enter the company with no experience, no work experience, but they learn, they grow, they become a manager. Their compensations increase so they can take care of their family more effectively. And over the years, you see them go from someone without any background in business to someone that can effectively run their department, make good choices, offload the responsibility and the worry from me. I can say, oh, I can count on that person. They'll get things done. And then even if they move on somewhere else, I'm happy for them because they've improved themselves, sometimes even well beyond what they thought they could do or what they thought their opportunities would be. They would think, oh, I need my first job in IT, and how do I ever get hired? And what's the way in? And if they found a way in through us, and they've ended up growing into a successful professional, that's the thing that I'm most proud of.
Wow. And what's also really cool is that kind of we like on this completely different, I would say opposite sides. And I can see from side of specialists that it's really working. And just everything you say, it's like you say it not from only yourself, but from the company. Because I believe that's the way managers are learning. That's what they're learning, and that's what they pass through. So it's kind of like, this chain of knowledge and mindset that you're passing. And like even like me on the other side, I can influence it as well. And I can understand from the experience what you're talking about, because it's really how the company operates. So that's pretty cool.
I didn't actually think about that, but if you agree and you see these things actually happening, then the system's working. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, it really is, because I heard basically like the same things, but from different people in the company. So I was like, wow, that's interesting.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. And what values do you think help Dev.Pro to achieve all of this?
So, the values that are, that are most important to me are clarity and being direct and being open on the reasons for things. We can't obviously share everything that's going on, and there's decision making that goes on that most people in the company aren't aware of. But once the decision is made, we need to let people know the reason. Sometimes there's good things that happen, sometimes there are bad things that happen. But once we make the decision, we have to stand behind it, and we have to let people know what the impact is. So we can't share all the information with everyone all the time, but when there are challenges, everyone's an adult, they're professionals, they understand the difficulties, and you need to share that with them. But at the same time, when there are good things happening and someone does a good job, there are bonuses that are given at different times to people. I just saw today that some clients provided some bonuses to people to recognize their contributions. Different projects are set up different ways, but there are sometimes bonus pools created to recognize performers that do a good job. So there's a lot of different things going on. It's a very complex enterprise with 800 plus people, and trying to manage it, make people feel valued and heard, also very important.
Yeah, and regarding so everything that you said about the difficult times, and there are wars, crises, injuries, like personal situation, and everything in between. But at the same time, you as a business should stay a reliable partner for your clients. And how do you manage to stay such a partner in difficult times? What's your mindset during these times?
You can't avoid the topic of the war and how that started and the impact on both, not both, but on the country, on the individuals, in the country, the people who work for Dev.Pro that were in Ukraine, and then on the clients, because ultimately it is a business, and we survive because we provide services to our clients. If our clients are nervous or think that they aren't going to be able to, they have deadlines themselves, and they have stakeholders and people that they report to, and if they're concerned that they can't get the work done through Dev.Pro, they're going to look somewhere else. And that's when the war started, that was an existential crisis for Dev.Pro, because the question is, will the clients stick with us, or will they say, hey, I'm sorry to hear about this, but I have to go somewhere else? Overwhelmingly, everyone was supportive. That was the amazing thing, that when the war started, I got on airplanes and started traveling around, meeting in person with our clients, saying, this is a situation, this is what's going on. And we had dozens of offers of, oh, I've got a spare bedroom. Unfortunately, the bedroom might be somewhere in the US, and people from Ukraine couldn't exactly get there, but people offered, houses. We had a GoFundMe that raised over $100,000 to support Dev.Pro contractors and their families when, for emergency situations. Everyone was extremely supportive, and we were able to navigate through it, get people to a safe place, get them back to work. Clients appreciated that. They appreciate the updates that I send on, what's going on, what steps we're taking to help people, to ensure they have, availability to work. Like recently we offered all of our contractors a $400 reimbursement for getting, either a Starlink or a power generator or a backup battery system or something like that, because, availability to work is what is important. If you don't work, we can't pay you because our clients don't pay us. We need to help you it's not our job as a company to ensure that wherever you're located, you have access to internet. It's your job to do that, but we can help in certain ways to facilitate it if necessary. And our clients want to see that. They want to see that we're not just sitting around and saying, oh, sorry, Sergey can't work today, but that we're trying to ensure that it's possible. Like we have 3 offices in Ukraine now, Kharkiv, Lviv, and Kyiv. They have Starlinks and battery backups, so if our contractors are in those locations, they can either work from home. If there's power problems, they can work from a co-working space. They can work from our office. There's lots of different options, and it's a very positive thing that we don't lose very many hours of productivity now, even with the challenges. People shift their hours. They may not work the same schedule, but they make up the time. They put in the effort because they realize if we're not supportive to our clients and not able to deliver, the clients, no matter how much they like us, they're going to have to look elsewhere. So we need to be a reliable partner for them, and a stable, reliable partner. And I've just been very pleased how that's worked out throughout the war, that we've been able to do that.
That's true. The war has brought a lot, and I just can remember that even before the war started, there was a lot of reminders, danger alerts, opportunities to leave the country from the company. And it was really nice because it even got me panicking in a good way, in a way that, okay, what I'm going to do, what if, and all of that. And so that's why I have the question, did you expect Russia to invade Ukraine in 2022?
Did I expect it? More than most people did, actually. And I know that because we did do a lot of the things that you talked about. We spent a lot of energy on preparation, even starting last year, 2021, April, May, June of last year, we had a practice run of our remote work policy where we paid people, I think it was $1,500 to work outside the country for 3 weeks. That was a time when some troops were being amassed on the borders and some equipment was being put there. And we said, it's time to go and try this. We don't think there's going to be an invasion right now, but let's try it and see how it goes. Let's make sure that everyone has their passports and has, a place someone to look after their cat and, their documents. And about 20% of our company took us up on that offer. They went to work remotely. At that point, it was either Western Ukraine or out of the country was the offer. I think we offered $750 to work out of the western part of the country, or $1,500 to work, in Turkey or Cyprus or anywhere they wanted to go. And we realized that, people could be productive even because of that, or even in that situation. The whole COVID situation really saved the business because it forced everyone to work remotely. People got used to it. They understood they didn't have to be in the same office with people. So if you can work remotely from your apartment in Kyiv, you can work remotely from, a hotel room in Egypt or something like that. So then we get to this year. We'd already done the practice run. We started letting people know, hey, be prepared, have a suitcase ready to go, have all your documents together, have a cat carrier. My wife tells me that I help sell more cat carriers in Ukraine than anyone else by telling people, don't expect to go out and find that at the last minute. You need to be prepared. So around, I think it was February 10th or 13th, we reinstituted the remote work policy with, telling people it's time to go, take us up on this policy, leave now, don't wait. But people didn't believe it. They didn't think it was going to be real, it was going to happen. Once again, about 20% of the company took us up on the offer, and left the country or headed west between the 10th or 13th and the 24th. But I later found out that maybe 50, maybe 75% of those people did it because they thought it was a free vacation. There's not going to be a war. Russia's not going to invade. But hey, if you're paying me $1,500, I'll go. I'll go to Budapest. I'll go to Turkey, no problem. And then they were quite shocked when the war started. I was not really shocked at that point. It was the Sunday before the war started that I was thinking, if I was in Ukraine, I would be leaving today. This thing is for real. And later, the way I know that people didn't take it seriously is as I've been traveling around, I've been to maybe 10 different countries, having a meal with our contractors in Budapest, in Prague, in Berlin, Porto, Wrocław, many different countries, and they would say, I didn't bring my driver's license because I said, I'm not renting a car for the next month, so why would I need my driver's license? And then they had to send someone to go back into their flat and get their driver's license or different papers. So they took us up on the offer, but they didn't really believe it was going to happen. They just thought that, hey, it's a free trip somewhere. And then the funniest thing is, one of our people in Vienna at lunch one day when I met with everyone, she said her mom told her that next time Jeff says to do something, she should do it because he predicted correctly. So I tell that story, and a couple other people said, "Oh, my mom said the same thing. You should listen now." So it is. I can't exactly see around corners, so I can't predict the future, obviously, but it was pretty clear to me that something bad was going to happen. What that actually meant wasn't clear, but it wasn't just going to be ramp things up and then back off. They got past the point of saying, okay, let's just all go home, before the war started.
Yeah, and you told about one side that people didn't take it seriously, and I believe there was also another side of this when people just couldn't leave because it was really complicated for them when they have this build-up life. Because on my example, I just took all the information seriously, and I felt that something is going to happen. And I was talking to my husband a lot, and I wanted to move, and I was one of those people who okay, just we pack our bags and we just go. But my husband, he's a doctor, he's an orthodontist, so he depends on the offline job. He needs to be there for his patients, and he needs to stay in place. And we just tried to figure it out for months or two, and we couldn't do that. And I believe that was another problem than when you have a family and commitments and all these different situations. It's really hard to just believe and know that it's going to happen when it's not for sure. But still, when it's happening, it's kind of a shock.
So I agree with you at some level, but when the war did start, all of those reasons went out the window. And I have multiple examples of people that are like, oh, I can't go because of this. And then on the 24th, the 25th, they're on a bus for 48 hours, to get out of the country. There's one person I talked to that I made some calls around the 20th to several people to say, why aren't you moving? Why aren't you going like now? And they all said, one person I've known for, worked for us 7 or 8 years. I said, why aren't you going? And she said, well, my husband, he can't go because of his job. And then, my mother doesn't want to go, and all these reasons. And then, she spent, on the night of the 24th, she ended up leaving, or finally deciding to leave, and she ended up in Germany. And I met her a couple months later at one of our meals, and I said to her, I remember we talked and you didn't want to leave. What ended up happening? And she said, well, you said to me at the time something I didn't remember saying, but she said, you said all those reasons don't matter if you're dead. And she said that's what got her moving, saying, yeah, all those reasons are important, but bombing of your apartment complex and you die, well, all of a sudden those reasons aren't as important. And I made 4 or 5 calls on that day. I don't remember exactly every conversation, but I do remember we have one other contractor. Her name is Inga. I called her and I said, why aren't you going? And she said, well, my husband and I, we just bought a house in Bucha. It's outside of Kyiv. We're going to go, spend the time there. And, it's a quiet town. We'll be fine. Unfortunately, Bucha was not a quiet town when the war started, and no one's heard from Inga or found her since the beginning of March. So we assume she's no longer with us, and it really, I could have done more, but everyone has to make their own decisions, and that was not a good decision for her.
Yeah, everyone actually has to take responsibility. And I know many stories like that when people just thought, okay, Kyiv is not safe right now, so I'm going to go to Irpin, to Bucha, to all of those places where just horrible things happened.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's really difficult to live through and talk about, but it's also fascinating how all these people who live in the war for so many months can still operate, work, live their lives, just figuring ways out. So it's a good thing that
people are very adaptable, and you just adapt. And it used to be, an air raid siren and everyone would freak out, and now it's normal for people. I mean, I can't talk about it personally, but just what people tell me. And you think, I can't live without electricity, I can't live without heat. Yeah, and then now a lot of people are figuring out workarounds and ways to do it. I still encourage people to, I sent an email to the company about 3 weeks ago, and I said, Kyiv is a very difficult situation. Now's the time. If you live there now's the time to leave and find somewhere else, because if the power can't be restored, then a couple million people are going to leave Kyiv all at the same time. And, where are they going to go? They're going to fill up all the available apartments all throughout Ukraine, and prices will be super expensive. You won't be able to find a place. It'll be a mess. So now's the time to go. Now, I hope I'm wrong. And I was totally prepared to be wrong before the war. We spent a ton of money getting people to move, and I would have been super happy if people would have laughed afterwards. Look at all the money you spent. It was all for nothing. Fine, no problem. You have many more options. Like some of the people that I know specifically, they were ready to go. The night of the 24th, they get in their car, they head west. And they get, the men were able to get across the border before the borders closed because they were prepared and ready to go. So the people that are prepared have the most options. So I'm very supportive of that, and we try to give people the tools and the knowledge, but everyone's going to make a decision for themselves. what's best for them and their families, and there's nothing we can do.
That's true. Well, I believe you really do a lot. So thank you so much for the support throughout all of these months. Everyone could feel it. I could feel it. So it's really nice. It was the first part of the episode with Jeff Bianco. We'll continue our conversation shortly, and in the next episode, we'll talk a lot about leadership, plans for the future, motivation, inspiration, and approach to work and business. Make sure you subscribe to our channel not to miss the next episode. See you soon.